they'd run offshore, and they'd pick up stuff from McCoy at the 12-mile line, and they'd run it back in. So they were all, they'd go offshore. This is my great-grandfather. There were some of the stories where him and Shorty would go off there and they'd catch, they'd get some rum and they'd come back in, run it up into Woodcliff Canal. They had money one day that got all wet. They had it in one of the bay houses all tacked up on the wall, and somebody came in there, I guess one of the wardens, and they had all this cash tacked up on the walls because it was all wet. So these were some of the little stories that I had heard. One of the times he was traded diamonds for rum because he would go offshore, buy the rum, bring it in from McCoy, and that's where the name The Real McCoy came from, because McCoy was, I think it was Bill McCoy, he was the one that would go down to the Bahamas, the Caribbean, and bring all the rum up, and they'd sail that 12-mile line, and they'd stay just outside of it, and they'd run off and get it and come back in with the small boats. Great-grandpa had diamonds, and one of the diamonds was made into a ring that was my grandfather's. I went to my father, and then I have it now. So actually I have this antique ring with a rum diamond in it. This is what it was called, because that's what they traded at the time. There was one guy that went off every day fishing. So they'd go offshore, and they had the boat loaded down with water. They'd get off, they'd pump it out, load it with booze, and then come back in. So as they were doing their fishing trip for the day, they were really going off and making rum runs every day. And a lot of that stuff came into Woodcliff Canal. That's where the majority of it came in, because it came right in the inlet, and they came right up. All the hotels, they all had rum. They were all bringing it in, and they were all having the secret compartments and all of that, where they had the rum hid under the floorboards in the house. And he did mention about one of the guys that was the bartender. Well, it was a quasi-bartender, because they weren't supposed to be serving alcohol, but he could go down and take a drink like this and come right back up and say, "Oh no, I never had a drink." So he always heard these little stories about little tidbits. The big hotels, they had ferries that ran across the bay that brought people out, and of course, because they're out in the bay, they were able to have the alcohol out there because it was coming in really easy.